Hi.
Hi.
Jesse Peterson. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Great. Carleigh, go ahead and have a seat.
Is it okay if I get some notes out?
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. Yeah, I understand that they've done quite a bit on both sides of the company, so now they just call in the kind of save the best for last kind of thing. Right. They call us in to tie up the loose ends.
Yes, for sure. So, okay, so I was going over kind of our agreement, and so I understand that something that wasn't really working for you guys in the agreement that we had laid out was that it didn't go along with your standard lease agreement that you had with all of your other stores. And so
exactly.
I understand how that would be hard since you guys are such a huge company to have to change your rules just for one place. So what are some things that we as landlords could do to help you guys out?
Sure, Carleigh, a few days ago I got an email from Hawkins with your guys' counter article in a hopes of using that article in replacement of ours. And just to be perfectly transparent with you, the article just doesn't really fit with who we are and our culture. And as you mentioned, it's difficult running a chain store to have one location that is in a completely different mindset or that we have to tailor to specifically. Just doesn't make a lot of sense for us. And so pretty much a lot of what was said in that counter article is not going to be feasible for us.
Okay, so what would be?
I mean, just to kind of paint the picture for you, in the 200 other locations that we have had so far, we use the same wording throughout to kind of give that consistency. And I think that we've found, honestly, that the developers even really enjoy, after a couple of years with us, they find that clause is really successful for them, just because when we have the flexibility to do what we do best, which is retail, then we're going to consistently keep that foot traffic, which is going to make you guys happy, and especially the other side like tenants. So by giving us that flexibility to kind of do what we need to do, it's actually more of a win for you guys.
Right, yeah. I mean, the only concern that we have with that is that, like, I know you guys probably wouldn't ever do this, but you would have the opportunity to turn it into, let's say, like a hazardous waste material site, you know, because you would be able to do anything that you wanted with the space. And then another thing would be that it would just harm the other tenants. It could harm the other tenants in the satellite stores, just because if you guys put in a furniture store and we have somebody that is selling furniture, then they would probably be run out of business and it would kind of compete with their stores. But obviously having you guys in our retail space is our #1 priority. Yeah, so basically what you're saying is the only way that we can make this work is if we kind of follow that lease agreement, that your standard lease agreement.
I mean, basically, I guess what I'm trying to convey here is just that I think it's going to be more of a benefit than you know. Obviously, if I were in your position, I understand that this is the biggest project you guys have done so far, the first mall development.
Right.
And so I totally understand. I mean, you guys are kind of newer to that whole range of the mall experience. And I just want to put kind of your worries and your fears to rest, just knowing that not only is it probably going to be more beneficial for you guys, but I know that you mentioned the other satellite tenants, and keeping them happy. Honestly, in the other locations, I think that we've found that opposed to being in conflict with them, it's actually kind of been a fantastic deal. They really enjoy being in the mall with us, and it's almost a selling point for them. Knowing that we're going to be in the mall, they love hearing that, and it really puts them on board. They say, okay, we know that discount is going to take care of making sure that foot traffic's coming through, which is a big deal for them. So I think far from being a problem, it's more of kind of a solution. And a lot of times these satellite stores have really enjoyed having us there, and it's been a selling point for them. So.
And that's really the biggest reason why some of these other tenants want to come to the location is because of you guys and what you guys bring to any retail space that you're at. Yes, that is huge. I completely understand where you're coming from with all of this. I don't want you to have to come to me just to ask for simple things, you know, like if you want to modify the space or anything. I noticed in one of the clauses it talked about subletting. So how do you feel about that? Are you pretty firm on being able to sublet, or would you be comfortable maybe only being allowed to sublet a portion of the space?
Sure. So kind of to give you the vision of what we do with subletting is, retail is kind of all over the place now. I mean, you can order something from Amazon and get it to your door the next day.
Right.
Pretty much anything you want. You can pull up to Walmart or Target and they're going to put the groceries right into the back of your trunk.
Sure.
So retail is kind of at this crazy, volatile and fast-paced, changing environment. And in order for us to be able to keep right on the edge of the market, we kind of need that flexibility to say, okay, if we want to bring in a smaller shop within discount, whether that's a jeweler or a small appliance little shop or a makeup location, that we can do that easily, and that it doesn't create an issue with any of the developers that we're already signed with.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you can imagine how it would be for me,
right,
going back to my higher ups and saying, hey, you know, we have everybody on par, any kind of marketing schemes that we come out with, any new products, any new shops we want to implement, it's going to be a go, except for this one location in Boston.
Right.
You know, it just doesn't really make a lot of sense, and
Yeah.
I can see that kind of being an awkward position for me to put myself into, just, you know, if you can understand where I'm coming from.
No, for sure, of course, yeah. Like I said, you guys are a huge company, and we're just a small landlord area, you know. So basically, in the agreement, you would like to be able to sublet the entire store, essentially, or because the one thing we just want to make sure is that you, as discount, are staying in the retail space, because that is one of the biggest reasons why these other tenants want to come to the location. I would just hate for you guys to be there for a year and then not make as much money, as I don't think you would, because the location is great, and then sublet the entire space to something else.
Sure. Yeah, typically that's not going to be really an issue. I'll go ahead and just put your fears to rest on that. Just we typically don't sublet the entire location, just because I don't presume to be in real estate, and it's not really something that I want to do. So in the occasion that we need to leave, typically we'll just assign the whole location to another store. And if that's going to make you feel comfortable, I mean, we can put a category in there that will be a similar retail store and that kind of thing. So definitely won't be an issue there.
Okay, so, and then also, what were you guys thinking in terms for the length of the lease? Because I know that there was some gray area for that. It was, I believe, a 10 to 20 year lease with an option to raise it to 50 years.
Right. I'm super glad that you brought that up, just because that definitely is actually something that was brought to my attention. Just the fact that it was going to be 25 years, and actually our standard lease is more of a 5-year.
Okay.
And we found that it's a lot more effective. Like you mentioned, hopefully we don't get stuck in a position where after 1 year we're not making profits, but we haven't built any stores in this specific area so far.
Mm-hmm.
So if we do run into that issue of it not being profitable, we need to have an out.
Right.
And it definitely is not feasible for us to be here for 25 years if we're not making money. And I don't presume to want to have to assign out the location for another 20 years if we're only there for 5 years. So
Right.
5 years is the standard, and that's typically what we stick with.
Right. So I'm just going to be completely honest with you. We, as you know, we're just me and my husband. We're just, trying to do this little project for this mall, and without you guys being there for at least 15 to 20 years, we wouldn't even be able to get this project rolling. So financing is pretty tight, and so without that long-term lease, we probably wouldn't be able to do the project.
Really interesting. Just because I know with a lot of the developers we've worked with in the past, a 3 to 5 year lease is perfectly acceptable for them, especially from a larger retail like Discount.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have a lot of previous history backing up our success. So I don't know. I guess I'm just kind of surprised at that and a little bit shocked that that's an issue, just because typically 5 years is perfectly acceptable for the lenders.
Yeah, we at least need 10 years. I'm looking for, obviously the longest term lease that we could get, but yeah, it's a little hard to just do 5 for us since it's not that long term.
I mean, honestly, it's going to be a hard sell for me to do 10 years. I don't see myself being able to do that. I mean, maybe 7 or 8 years is something that I could sell to the other people on the board, but I just really don't see myself being able to sell 5 years to them.
Oh, you mean 10?
I mean, yes. Yeah, sorry.
No, that's understandable. I hate that I have to have a long-term lease because I understand where you're coming from. It would just be hard because these other tenants are kind of relying on you guys being there, and let's say you guys left in 5 years, then the other tenants wouldn't get as much foot traffic as they once were when you guys were there, and so it would probably end up being one of those big strip malls that have no tenants and are just vacant. And I would hate for all of our our savings, and we're putting everything into this, and so we really want to make sure that it's here for the long run. So
right, absolutely. I totally understand where you're coming from, and again, if I were in your position, I'd probably feel the same way. I mean, you're trying to do the best that you can and make money on this project. I will mention this. It's just an adage that we sometimes use at headquarters, but it goes a little like, don't let the tail control the dog. So I definitely wouldn't want us to be caught up in kind of this idea that these smaller satellite tenants who are sort of the more insignificant part of the project be controlling the larger part, which is discount. I mean, we'll be controlling and running more than 25% of the mall, which is a really big portion for one store. So I just wouldn't want us to get caught up in that mentality, right? That the tail is controlling the dog here.
Right. Well, I'm just worried that if you guys left, then everything else would kind of just fall under, like you always see those when you drive around town, there's always just those vacant, strip malls, sorry. And I would just hate for that to be one of our stores because you guys left.
Sure. Absolutely. And let me just tell you that typically, I mean, it doesn't make a lot of financial sense for us to be here today. And then leave tomorrow. It just would be terrible for us. We sink a lot of money in when we open a new location. So, I mean, our hopes, and the reason why I'm sitting across the table from you today, is that we hope to be here for the long term. But as you can imagine, we live in a society where sometimes marriages don't even last more than 5 years. So, so the thought of being locked in for kind of a longer period where we really don't know how the market here is going to respond to us is just kind of difficult to make that kind of a commitment. And perfectly, I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, it doesn't make a lot of logical sense for you guys either. On the odd chance that we're not able to turn a profit and we're not as profitable as we want, that means that people are not walking through the mall. So you guys won't want us to be here just as much as we won't want to be here. It'll be a lose-lose at that point.
That's true. So would you be comfortable maybe raising it from 5 to maybe 7 or 8 years?
Like I mentioned, it's not something that we normally do, but I think that we may be able to sell that at headquarters. That sounds probably a little bit more feasible.
Okay, and I feel like that would benefit us as well. Just a question. So with your other stores, how likely is it that you guys extend your lease? Do you guys typically do that, or do you typically go to a new location or shut it down? Or what usually happens?
As a general rule, I'd say that we typically will stay an additional 20 or 25 years at least after that initial lease. So definitely, I mean, I would hate for you to get the vibe that we're not here for the long haul. Obviously, that doesn't make a lot of sense for us. So definitely, if it's a great location, not only will we be extending the lease, but we'll probably be opening other locations in Massachusetts. So definitely a possibility there, but we just don't want to be tied down if for some reason this economy doesn't respond well to us.
And that's fair. Okay, yeah. So do you feel comfortable with the 7 to 8 year lease, or do you need to talk to somebody else in your board?
I think that's definitely a decision that I can make and can roll forward with my position in the company. So I know that in the past they have, obviously it's not something that they're completely happy about, but I'll be able to push that through as long as you guys are okay with us continuing to sublet and have kind of free range of the use of the store to be flexible.
Right. Yeah, I think that we would be able to make that work. This is something that I've always wanted to do, and I think that having discount at our strip mall, that would just be amazing.
Awesome. Fantastic. That was time.